Welcome to Taking the Myth, your topical, skeptical discussion show. I'm Stephen Knight, and joining me is the one, the only, Iram Ramzan. Iram, how are you?
I'm good. Ramadan Mubarak to you, Stephen.
May the force be with you also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you starving and dehydrating yourself this month?
The funny thing is,
No.
every now and then, I do enjoy a little fast. So sometimes...
While you're asleep.
Yeah, well, that's what. To be fair, yeah, like most of it is while I'm asleep. I believe that you're not. That doesn't count during Ramadan. It's part of your fasting. It's between some set hours. You can't even have water either, can you?
Yeah, that's what we have to keep reminding everybody. Not even water. I love it when lots of Muslims who are observing Ramadan get really annoyed when they're asked that. What? Not even water? And then they just reply, in this exasperating manner, like, obviously not even water. I mean, what a stupid question. Well, no, it's not stupid. I mean, who voluntarily dehydrates themselves, for the whole day? But yeah, whatever.
And is it like the ruling is, nothing passes the lips? Is it food specific, or is it everything? Like, what about chewing gum?
Oh, chewing gum, no, obviously not, because then the mint will go in your saliva, and then you swallow your saliva, and then technically you've eaten that mint. So, no.
What if you're on a bicycle and you're bombing it down a steep hill, and out of fucking nowhere, blue bottle in your mouth, gone down? Would Allah be angry about that?
Well, I'm trying to envisage a moment of blue bottle just randomly. No, I think Allah is all merciful, so he'll be okay with that.
There are exceptions as well, aren't there? I think there are some injunctions of like if you are able to do it, you should, but if there are reasons that you can't do it, you don't have to.
Yeah, so if you're old, you're sick, you're on
hungry.
Your period. Yeah, if you're hungry, then don't.
If you're hungry, don't bother.
Don't bother. If you're just greedy shit, don't bother. But what's really funny is it really brings out some of the most annoying traits of people. People who normally aren't very observant, but then during Ramadan suddenly remember God and then have to chastise you for doing something that's quote unquote haram. Like, oh my God, you're listening to music. We shouldn't be doing this during the holy month. This is wrong. And I'm thinking, yeah, pretty sure you were, getting drunk about 3 weeks ago, but Allah's okay with that, I suppose.
So it becomes a bit of a competition, a bit of a Ramadan ding dong.
Ramadan ding dong, or Ramazan ding dong. Yeah. So
that's that. Yeah, it's interesting though. I mean, like I do tend to think that what the things that religions do get right, they get right by accident. I do see a bit of value in sort of fasting or abstaining from alcohol occasionally.
Yeah, I mean, everybody talks about the science of intermittent fasting now and how beneficial it is, to go without food for certain hours of the day and just to eat during this, specific set of hours. And that's supposed to be quite good for you, especially if you want to lose weight or, regulate your blood sugar levels or something. And it does work for some people. But I've yet to see any evidence that not having water for about 18 hours a day is good for you. I'm happy to be proved wrong. So if there's anybody listening who can point me out to some scientific study that says it's okay to deprive yourself of water, then happy to be corrected. So yeah.
There you go. Some health advice from Knight and Ramzan. Gwyneth Paltrow shaking in her boots.
I mean, she's constantly fasting, isn't she? I mean, when was the last time she ate a burger, for crying out loud?
She's not the greatest poster girl for what's the word they use? Detox.
Health? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She eats nothing. I mean, I'm pretty sure if she was being honest about what she eats or doesn't eat, then I'd be amazed if she consumes more than 500 calories a day. That's not good for you.
She has one poo a week. I can't know that for sure. All right, well, it's probably Jesus Christ, what another cracking start. it might be worth picking up on something that happened in February that we just missed. Shamima Spaghetti Bagram Begum. This is from the BBC. Bid to regain
BBC called us spaghetti.
I should clarify the BBC did not refer to her as spaghetti bagram. Shamima Begum bid to regain UK citizenship rejected. This was on the 22nd of Feb. Shamima Begum has lost her challenge over the decision to deprive her of British citizenship despite a credible case she was trafficked, apparently. Thoughts, opinions?
God, so Shamima's going to spend Ramadan in a refugee camp, and God, feel so sorry for her. I really do.
Yeah.
Um,
And she's been fasting all year, I think.
I know she's been deprived of her mint arrows, Stephen. You've got a feel for her. Yeah, so this happened while there was a podcast. I don't know if you've listened to any of the episodes, but the BBC has done a 10-part podcast because 10 episodes is not enough, on Shamima's journey to ISIS, how she went out there, what led to it, what happened when she was out there. And the documentary maker, or podcast maker rather, Josh Baker, he wanted to get a sense of what truly happened. And he said, it's not about being an apologist for her actions. It's not completely condemnatory. It's just about being factual and finding out the truth from the fiction. Have you been listening to the podcast at all?
I haven't. I fully intended to, but it was one of them things where I thought
you're not really missing much.
Yeah,
you're not really missing that much. I do think 10 episodes was way too much. I mean, all of it could have been condensed in, I think, less than 5 episodes, if I'm honest with you, because a lot of it was stuff that we already knew.
My position hasn't changed on this, and I have an instant emotional response to her situation. I don't like her. I don't particularly care about her, and I'm honest about that. However, on principle, I've always maintained, the right decision would probably be to bring her home and have her face justice in this country. She's a product of Britain. She's our responsibility. That's how I feel. However, I completely understand the opposite side. I think there is good arguments on both sides for sure, and I am not going to lose any sleep about her rotting away in a Syrian jail for sure. But what really pisses me off about the whole thing are the false narratives being pushed around. She's being portrayed as a victim, as if something happened to her rather than her making bad things happen to herself and other people. People keep hitting home this thing that she was 15 when she left. That's correct, but I don't know about you, Iram, but at 15 years of age, I knew it was probably wrong to join a murdering, genocidal, raping, slave-taking death cult. She can't even say she didn't know that was the reality, because that's one of the things that actually attracted her to the caliphate. She consumed propaganda, including, by her own admission, beheading videos, things like that. So it's not like she thought she was going to Alton Towers, got out there and it was a wasteland of a shit show. What happened is she found exactly what she expected while she was there, and the whole fucking thing fell apart. And that's why she wants to come home. As an adult, as she was 19, as she'd been there for years, she was openly advocating for the Manchester Arena bombings, all sorts of things. There was credible intelligence to suggest she was one of the people who were sewing people into suicide vests so they couldn't get out of them. There's other credible reports to suggest she was a rifle carrying enforcer of the morality police there. So by all accounts, quite aware of what she was getting into and quite complicit in some awful things while she was there. That's the thing that I want people to remember, regardless of whether they want her brought home or not. That's an open debate. But let's not just pretend she was hoodwinked and groomed, or they speak about it like she was thrown in the back of a van and driven over the border. And it's just not the case. That's
kidnapped and told, that's it, you're living in ISIS territory now.
Exactly, and that's just not the reality of it.
I did listen to the whole series For All My Sins, and the final episode was delayed because the journalist said there was some sort of, amazing new developments, so they had to be delayed. And then what happened was he managed to get in contact with her best friend, Shamina, no relation, Shamima Begum, who was the one who inspired her apparently to join ISIS. She apparently then dismissed Shamima. She was quite sort of derisory towards her. Said that she just wants to. She says she wants to return to the UK. She's like someone who lives off benefits, and mocked her as a non-believer.
Meow.
I know. I mean,
Wow.
women can be a little bit bitchy sometimes.
The Housewives of ISIS. We really need to greenlit that show, don't we?
Oh my god, yes. And so basically, they addressed the claims that Shamima was part of the Hizbah brigade, the women who went round enforcing ISIS rules, and she basically just she dismissed all that and said that that was nonsense, that Shamima was never important enough. She was always stuck at home. Her husband would have let her out. She was just not important enough to even be part of the brigade. So basically she's just some sort of sponger who didn't really contribute to the caliphate at all. And I think she's lazy as well.
Waste of space.
Proper. And her lipstick doesn't even go with her skin undertones either. I mean,
that's it. No wonder that's made the decision easiasier.
Where's dad trainers? That's what really annoys me the most, the trainers. And those horrible vests. My God, Shamima, stop wearing those wife beater vests. I know you're part of fucking ISIS, but still.
God.
So basically, the point of this episode was to address, these speculations about Shamima and whether she's dangerous, and her so-called friend was dismissed it all and said, she was basically a nobody and a loser. So I guess you kind of go away from this maybe thinking, okay, maybe she isn't that dangerous. Maybe, maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to bring her back because, what danger does she pose? And I'm just thinking, how much exactly can we really rely on this Shamima Begum? Is she really telling the truth? But also, there's this narrative that I've seen a few times that Shamima, when she was first found by journalists and said all those things, especially about the Manchester Arena bombing, she was just saying that because she was in ISIS territory, and she had to just sort of blend in. She was scared. She'd been exposed to their dogma all these years. Can you blame her? And I just think to myself, well, she's still in a camp surrounded by all these desperate ISIS housewives. Arguably she's still in danger if you think about it, because she's now got a even bigger profile than when she left. So that to me, that to me doesn't sound right. I don't know if you think the same, but I just think it's arguing that she only said all that stuff before because she was in danger just doesn't make any sense, because she's still in the same position. She should still, by that logic, be in danger even now.
I think this can be understood quite simply. There is Shamima Begum before a legal team and a PR team, and the Shamima Begum post PR team and legal team. So I think
is it the PR team that's telling her to wear all those horrible outfits?
I think so. I think they're just trying
the stylist Shamima, if I were you.
Yeah, I think they're trying to just westernize her up. She's like, she's just an ordinary girl, likes Primark. You know what I mean? As before, she was in the full burqa and the full kit. She's
just a normal young lady who likes to paint her nails.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's enough of her. I think. Enough. God damn it. I mean, I'm sure we'll hear from her again, because there'll no doubt be more appeals, etc. And I think a lot of this will depend on what government's in charge going forward as to whether or not she returns. She'll be the female officer for the Labour Party within the next 5 years. Can you
God. Oh my God, she'd be like, yeah, if she was a student, she'd be NUS a president or something, wouldn't she?
Yeah. All right. Well, this is worth talking about. I mean, this is something that's the aftermath is still unfolding. When are we recording this? It's Saturday, the 25th of March. I don't know if you're familiar with Kellie-Jay Keen, also known as Posie Parker. She's a notorious women's rights activist. I've interviewed her and covered one of her events in Manchester. Are you
You
aware
went.
of the
Oh
woman?
yes, I remember. I remember that event. I didn't get to attend it, but I remember you went to one of these events, and there was quite a bit of a kerfuffle outside, wasn't there?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, when anyone wants to stand, I mean, she does these events, these speakers' corners events. She goes all around the UK. She's done them in London, up in Scotland, I think, everywhere, Manchester. And basically, her entire premise is she's going to get a sound system. She's going to stand in a public place, and she's going to invite women to speak about their sex-based rights. And obviously, they're going to talk about gender ideology. They're going to talk about transgender rights. They're going to talk about female spaces. They're going to talk about children and how this ideology affects them in terms of medicalization, surgery, things like that. They want to talk. Now, it's not for everybody, obviously, and I'm not going to pretend it's all scholarly and civil. Sometimes she will talk
They're just
about.
people gobbing off.
It can be. I mean, it's a wide range of people speaking, and she's very smart, but she's also a blunt instrument. Whereas a lot of
Like
people
her.
will, yeah, well, a lot of people will. I was going to say pussyfoot around the language. A lot of people will. A lot of people will temper their language and use terms that are more acceptable and try and be give a professional air. She doesn't give a fuck. She cares about one thing and one thing only, and that's the rights of women. Everything else is not of interest to her. She doesn't care about having to defend trans rights as well. She doesn't care about having to use the PC terms for transgender people. She's going to say what she thinks, and I think sometimes you need a blunt instrument like that in this area. I think she's one of these people that's just kind of decided she's not going to play by everyone else's rules on this topic anymore.
So this activist, she went to Australia, from what I've read, and then she went to New Zealand to talk about these issues, and there've been some violent protests.
Can you imagine being attacked by a mob with a New Zealand accent? It's
It's
equal
quite
parts.
funny, isn't it?
Yeah, it's equal parts terror and hilarity. I'm not sure. Not sure what
Get
would get
out,
you.
get out of our land, you commie. That was such a shit accent, sorry. I wasn't prepared.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try. Not even going to try. But it's very Flight of the Conchords, isn't it? But so what happens is whenever these women try and organise, various LGBT plus QR / forward roll, jump back, QT plus, I think I've got everything in there, groups turn up and form a counter protest, and they behave like little fascists. They try and shut them down. They physically intimidating. Violence often happens. And what was remarkable for me to see, and I wrote about this on my Substack,
Just plugging in
snight.substack.com.
casually,
If anyone wants to check out some of my sweet writing, but
please don't contribute.
you'll find.
Smug.
I don't know if you've seen this, but it's one of the most ridiculous and irresponsible things I've ever seen from a news channel in my entire fucking life. So there's a New Zealand news channel called News Hub. Now
Oh my God, I've seen it.
yeah, they had a 2-minute segment just covering the fact that Posie Parker had been in Australia and she was coming to New Zealand. They portrayed her as anti-trans, etc. Now they used a clip from one of her YouTube videos, and she's talking about her visa issues or something, and she raises her hand up just under her chin. And at the moment she does this, the news channel puts one of them censored blur effects over it, and the news reporter says that we have chosen to blur her using a white supremacist symbol.
Oh, for God's
So
sake,
I'm like,
seriously.
what's going on here? What is she
But it
doing?
wasn't. It wasn't a white supremacist symbol at all, was it?
No, I found the video. It's a 9-minute YouTube video she did, a live video, and 4 seconds of this video they've picked out for this news report. And what she's doing is adjusting the zipper on her t-shirt and her garment, her top, whatever she's wearing. She's just pulling the zip up. And they've blurred that and pretended she's flashing a white supremacist sign. For those of you who don't know, the OK sign, where you get your thumb and point your index finger to it and make an O kind of symbol and hold it up, that's an OK sign. If you type in OK sign in Google, you can find people throughout history making it. It's perfectly benign. However, at some point in the last 5 or 6 years, a load of online trolls decided to pretend it was a white supremacist single. Mainstream media picked up on that and took it as genuine. Then white supremacists did start using it every now and then. So it's become a bit of a shit posting thing. But the idea that she was doing that is insane. And
That would
yeah,
explain all the dirty looks I've been getting recently. Making those signs at people.
but it's a mainstream news channel has just told
That's
everyone
absolutely
watching
absurd. It's absolutely absurd.
Yeah, they're basically saying a white supremacist is coming to the country and she's about to have a rally. What do you think of that, people? And obviously, what happened is it turned violent. It was abandoned. She had another date in the calendar for New Zealand. That's been cancelled, I believe. But there's lots of footage online on Twitter.
And there's loads of people just trying to attack her. It just reaffirms why women want their women-only spaces and away from frigging biological men sometimes. Okay, I get it. Hashtag not all men, but still too many men. And what I thought was absurd as well was, when I think the High Court, New Zealand's High Court, said it was, it was okay to basically allow her entry, as though it's something that really needed to be done. And the immigration minister, Michael Wood, said, I condemn her inflammatory, vile, and incorrect worldviews, but then, concluded that, the case doesn't meet the threshold for ministerial intervention. Well, no shit, Sherlock, it doesn't. How have we got to a stage where just asserting biological facts and reality could be deemed, inflammatory? I wonder if this is how Galileo felt in the 1600s. The earth rotates around the sun, people.
Yeah. Well,
absurd.
She was nearly crushed to death. If you watch that footage, she was nearly crushed to death.
She's a turf or a turd. I mean,
oh God. Well, we'll get to that in a second. But
you'll have to explain that to me.
But she got tomato soup thrown all over her as well. Got drenched in that. That could have been anything. Luckily, it was just soup. But that's terrifying to me. And I think what people really need to get into their head very quickly is that everyone assumes, oppression and fascism starts with evil people just going, "Mohaha, I'm evil and I want to oppress people," and they're twirling their mustache and they're wearing black. They're like cartoon villains, because that's how we think about fascists and Nazis gone by. When in reality, these people were ideologically motivated and thought they were doing good. They were people who thought they were doing good.
Do they actually think they're doing good? I think you're giving them a bit too much credit, especially these people at rallies. I don't think they are doing any good. I think, maybe politicians might be a different matter, but I think, the people who made up this mob, I think they're just a bunch of fucking bullies. I don't think they actually do think they're doing any good.
I agree they're bullies, but I think they think the ends justify the means. So they've othered her as something less than human. She's evil and she's hateful of trans people. So whatever comes her way, she deserves it because she's the bad guy. That's the mentality. And that's what creates fascists. It's this anything goes, the greater good, the ends justify the means, this drunk on your own self-righteousness that you can do not wrong and you don't even entertain the possibility that you might be wrong. And that's what they're all drunk on. It's pure hatred because they've convinced themselves this woman represents something that is so evil, so wrong, and so much of an antithesis towards humanity that it needs stopping on sight. And that's terrifying to me. I don't even feel that way about, me and you have been incredibly critical over the year. Let's just take an example of Islamism. Me and you hate Islamism. It's so irrational. It's illiberal. People suffer under it. It's a terrible, terrible thing. Yet, I think if you and I witnessed an Islamist talking in public and a mob of, people physically try to assault them just for speaking, try to shut them down, I'm 100% sure you and I'd go, you can't do that. That's wrong.
I mean, it depends on the Islamist. And I have to admit, some of them need a smack. But, okay, yeah, on the whole. On the whole, you are right. You are right.
Yes.
Violence is wrong, people.
Exactly. I mean...
No one deserves to be beaten up, even Islamists,
But going back to... TERF and TERD. So TERF is obviously trans exclusionary radical feminist. It's become a pejorative slur at this point. It's just a way of calling women cunts, I think. Some politician in Australia, so cringe. Did you watch the video?
Oh, God. Yeah.
What's he called? Nickma what? Nickma fucking brain cells. It's Nick McKim, that's what he's called. Nick McKim. Nick McKim, right? It's Nick McKim, No, that was that. That's terrible. Yeah, I'm going to cut that out.
That was the worse than mine.
Well, this fucker is a senator. He's from the Green Party, but he's an Australian senator.
Of course he's from the Green Party.
He got in court in Parliament, in Australian Parliament, and was speaking about Posie Parker and made this horrible cringe joke about them being trans exclusionary right-wing dropsticks.
Right, what is a right-wing
drop kick? Sorry. So I had to. This is Australian slang, right? So I don't know if you.
So nobody will understand it then.
But this is where it gets interesting. Because I don't know if you've heard of Aussie Rules soccer. Aussie Rules soccer. It's an insane sport. It's hardcore. It's like it makes any of the sport look quaint. By the way, but basically, if you drop a kick, that's known as a punt. P-U-N-T. So it's Australian rhyming slang for punt. If you call someone a drop kick, you're calling them a punt, which rhymes with see you next Tuesday. It's just a way of calling someone a cunt. So he's got in Parliament in Australia and called a woman a cunt, essentially, for defending sex-based rights.
That misogyny?
Well, that's the most amazing point. Can you imagine that happening in any other context and people not being outraged about the blatant misogyny?
Oh, and do you know what really annoyed me as well? The Guardian reported it and went with the headline, anti-trans activist Posie Parker ends New Zealand tour. Yeah, she's not anti-trans. She's can we be more realistic here? She's not fucking anti-trans.
She should sue them.
Women.
I got described as Pink News as anti-trans. Like I made a Pink News article. I interviewed Graham Linehan, and
Mr. Father Ted.
They did a little write-up of it, misrepresenting some of his words on climate change, obviously.
Yeah, but Pink News, I mean, the news in Pink News is, a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
It's doing a bit of heavy lifting there. I mean, they don't report news at all. They're just activists.
Well, they described me as anti-trans YouTuber. And I don't know if I'm more insulted about YouTuber or anti-trans, to be fair.
You are so not a YouTuber.
I know. I don't even go, hi guys, when I make my YouTube videos.
Hey guys, when you do your makeover tutorial.
Click and like, hit that subscribe button. But it's a bit unfair because realistically, that sort of thing, if a mainstream news outlet describes you as anti-trans or a Nazi or whatever, that's going to bring an extra level of security risk to your life. If the wrong people see it. And it's irresponsible, and it's a way of not having to deal with the issues. It's a case of slapping a label on so you can dismiss someone and not have to engage. And that's exactly what all these, attempts to shut people down physically are. I don't have the arguments. I can't use my big boy voice. So I've got to kick and scream like a toddler. And none of this is going to age well. People seem to think we're past making huge fuck-ups in terms of people's rights. With a lot of the younger generation seem to think we're living in this time now where we all have access to the 100% correct opinions on everything, and we don't. And when future generations look back at how some of these women were treated, I mean, it is shades of like some of the things the suffragettes had to deal with. It seems
It's
like
even worse. It's
yeah,
even worse. Because this is just I mean, this is just, we're basically having to cater to the whims of a bunch of blokes who want to engage in cosplay and call themselves women. Well, you're not fucking women. I mean, if you want to go around wearing a dress and heels, by all means do so. If that makes you happy, fine. But don't pretend you're an actual woman. Don't come into my changing room. Don't come into our toilets. Just fuck off. You've got your own space. Why do you want our spaces? And this week, you had the World Athletics president Seb Coe, who ruled that transgender women should not be allowed in female events. They're actually excluded from it now. I mean, we've got to that point now where saying something like this could be deemed as controversial. I mean, he said that we believe the integrity of the female category in athletics is paramount. Well, duh, Seb. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we may have mentioned this a few times before. I mean, what's interesting is the spin on it as well. All the activist groups are describing, I think, was it fucking Mermaids or Stonewall? One of those fuckers. I think
It's
it was
one of those idiots.
Yeah, I think it was Stonewall who described it as a unilateral ban on transgender women competing in sports. And it's like,
No one's banning you from
nobody's
no
banned.
one is banning you. You have your category. It's called the male category. Now, you, by all means, you want to enter that category, you can do so. But they don't want to do that because they know they'll fucking lose. So they enter the women's category where they'll thrash the women because, hey, biologically, men are, have superior strength.
You know what's the problem here? The progressive left have made this worse for transgender people because they're forcing the hand of people now. So, for instance, it's an open debate and discussion about whether it's possible for someone to live as the other sex or whether somebody has changed their sex. I don't think you can, and I should be allowed to say that. But the entire discussion, including law and social media rules and employment rules, etc., were based on the premise that if you misgender someone, that's a red line. If you do not respect someone's gender identity, that's a red line. So already people entering this debate, women who are trying to argue for their sex-based rights, are having to argue with one hand behind their back because they can't say, that's a fucking bloke in a dress, because they may lose their
I'll
social
say
media
it. I'll
account.
bloody go out and stand there on a
Yeah.
podium and bloody say
But
it.
the problem is, they would not have to point and say that's a bloke in a fucking dress if everyone wasn't gagged against saying so. It becomes necessary to say these things if you tell people they can't. I'd have no compulsion or desire rather to say, that's a man, that's a man, that's a man, that's not a woman, that's a man. But people are saying I have to say that's a woman. That's the difference. And they've really fucked this up for transgender people. If they'd have just lent on liberalism and said this person has the right to define themselves however they want, dress however they want, live however they want, and you shouldn't oppress them for it, everyone would go, yeah, fucking of course. But then they added some addendums. They said, and you must participate in their identity. You must refer to them as she and her, and nod along when they talk about their womanhood and pretend they can menstruate and they understand the whole female experience. And you know what I mean? And that's too much of an ask. It's like asking to me that in order to respect the identity of Christians, I have to pretend that Christ was the Son of God. That's never happening. So why push that in people's faces? That's the issue.
Well, I mean, I have to say it was so, watching those female athletes, at the end of some event going to collect their prize and they're in second or third and some bloke pretending he's a woman, surprise, surprise, wins first place. And they're just having to stand there and sort of just smile and nod along and say, yeah, this is great event, well done. And you can just tell those women were just just angry, and you felt that anger, and I was angry for them because I just felt that they were robbed.
It's
They
heartbreaking
were
in a
truly
way.
robbed. It is, and it's not. I mean, this is why you have separate categories for men and women, because otherwise men would just come out number one all the time, and that's not to say that women are inferior. It's just a biological reality.
Yeah.
The fastest man on earth will always be the fastest woman. It's not a fair competition, but biology isn't really fair
These
anyway.
these women who are at that level, who are competing in athletics, they're exceptional human beings. And the only way you can recognize and reward their exceptionalism is by letting them compete on a fair playing field. And that means competing against biological women. It's not, I mean, you can guarantee this is the problem. So mediocre men, mediocre male athletes who were ranking nowhere in the males events are now running away with gold and
Yeah, Leah
silvers in the
Thomas.
women's.
What category? I mean, what position did Leah Thomas finish in as a bloke? Was it something like 300?
Yeah, and you can tell he's holding back when he's swimming. He's he's only
Excuse
winning
me,
by just
wrong
enough.
pronouns.
Oh fuck it, I'm beyond it now. No one's going to control how I describe reality
Oh,
anymore.
what was that news story about the Scottish rapist, and everyone kept referring to
Oh, it's the
her
individual.
penis.
Oh yeah.
Her penis. Her penis. I mean, that is a crime against English.
Can you not
For
remember Ricky
fuck's sake.
Gervais getting so much shit for that excellent joke
And then it
in his last
happened.
stand-up? And it's basically it's happening every week now.
Life is imitating art now. It really is. It's mood. It's not even a joke anymore. It's
Yeah.
actually happening.
I do think like a lot I think people when we talk about this male versus female disparity thing in athletics, I think sometimes people think we're shitting on women, and people use phrases like women are a lot weaker than men when they're talking about sports. Now I don't see it like that. It's like if somebody has 20 million pounds and somebody has 15 million pounds, doesn't make sense to say the person that has 15 million pounds is poorer, does it? That's the wrong adjective. That's the wrong word, isn't it? To say they're poorer. They're both rich. There's just a slight difference. And
It's like even in, let's say boxing, you have like featherweight, you have lightweight, you have heavyweight. You wouldn't put someone who's lightweight against someone who's heavyweight, would you?
yeah.
And it's not to suggest that they're both like the lightweight person is really weak and shit at what he does or what she does. It's not that at all. It's just that it has to be a level playing field. You wouldn't have an adult competing against a child in a sport, for crying out loud. Oh my god, I'm gonna go to a school sports day and thrash the kids.
Yes, I can imagine you fucking nail that egg and spoon race, Iram. I'll be on the sidelines just shouting like foul-mouthed abuse at the kids.
Oh my god, that actually
Yeah.
sounds like fun. But seriously, it is about a level playing field. And the thing is, if this was happening to men, if men's rights were being taken away from them and their spaces were being taken away from them, men would not put up with this shit. But we're expecting women to just bend over and take it. Why?
You know what's funny though? Like when you have female to male trans athletes and they're asked, "Do you want to compete with the men?" They go, "No, thank you."
Oh, I wonder why that is.
Yeah. So I just
Have there been instances where the trans men have competed in the men's categories?
I don't know of any. Maybe it has, but I'm not aware of any. It usually happens that they still compete with the women. I think there was a rugby player, transgender man. See, even the terms are confusing sometimes. People have started using the terms trans identified male now or trans identified female, which I think makes far more sense, but obviously is considered rude and hateful. Yeah, but I can't believe this sport thing's come so far. And I like imagine being physical peak fitness. You've dedicated your life as a woman to this sport, this goal. You've sacrificed so much for the discipline of it, and some fucking walking ball sack turns up in his late 40s and just like takes a medal from you, and that's it. That's your big shot That's it. It's gone. Or you don't qualify because a mediocre bloke's took your place. You've done everything right. You've got this amazing qualification time, but it's no longer considered good because the idea of what's good for a woman has now been warped out of all recognition because you've got a fucking bloke in your category. You not see that cyclist that quit the other day? He was like,
No, I didn't actually.
like third and fourth place and second place were all men. She was surrounded by men. She's a cyclist, and some of them had even got physical with her on the route as well. And she just she said she's just devastated by it all. Her family's devastated to see her keep getting beat by men. And it's like that fucking woman would have been running away with it otherwise. And it's not fair. It's the injustice of it. But it does seem, I don't know if you feel this way, but it does feel like the rest of the world is slowly starting to catch up. Some of the institutions are starting to notice there is a thing called biology.
What I want to know is how it got to this position in the first place. I mean, when did all this start? That's what I can't remember. When did this madness start?
Well, talking of madness, because we've got a hardcore 20-minute trans bashing session there.
Oh my God, we're turds.
Yeah, turds, pure turds. Bunch of drop kicks. Right, I don't know if you saw this, some a bit of left field, but I don't know how much Roald Dahl played in your childhood. Were you a fan of Connoisseur?
Oh my God, yeah.
I mean, apart from him being like a virulent anti-Semite, and apart from him throwing Salman Rushdie under the bus during the Satanic Verse fiasco, he knocked out some good books as well.
Right, can I just interject here?
Go on.
I didn't really know that when I was about 8 years old. I didn't.
Sorry, Iram. You were not invested in the perils of Salman Rushdie at 8 years old. You did not care about the plight of the Jews at 8 years old.
At age 8, I couldn't give a fuck about anything that was happening outside my classroom, to be honest with you. I didn't even know who Salman Rushdie was. The only Salman I'd heard of was Salman Khan, a Bollywood actor. So that meant nothing to me. So, hey, sorry if 8-year-old me was more concerned with how entertaining the book was rather than the author behind it. Okay, so
did you have a favorite Roald Dahl book?
Ooh, there's a few, but so some of I'll say my top few, like Matilda, because I really liked reading as well. So I saw myself as Matilda, but not. I didn't have the power to move things, though.
That's a
obviously.
shame. That is a shame.
Could have come in handy at that age. Matilda, I really liked Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, obviously, because I like chocolate. What else did I like? George's Marvelous Medicine. Oh my God.
There you go.
George, the little shit who just wanted to give it to his grandma.
They were always naughty kids, weren't they? I was a Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator fan. Can I tell you a tiny little anecdote?
I hated that book. What is wrong with you?
Just to let you know, I was a victim of diversity and inclusion as far back as primary school era, and I've been scarred about it since.
Really? So I was like some sort of virulent anti-Semite at age 8. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. No, but during primary school, we were putting on an amateur production of James and the Giant Peach, and I was Mr. Drama Man in school. I like to act and write. I always thought I was going to be an actor. Yeah, I was just a big, massive drama flaps. No, I like to do drama. I like to act and write. And I went for the role of James, obviously, because in every school play, I had the lead role because, I was the actor.
Right, show off.
And our teacher decided this year that they were going to audition girls for the role of James as well.
Oh my God.
And I thought, that's silly. James is a boy. So I thought, I've got this in the bag. And I auditioned. I was amazing, obviously. Just embodied the essence of James in every way possible. And you know what they went and did, don't you? They went and gave it to Caroline, and she played James, and I've never forgot it. And I was that annoyed by it, I spat my dummy out and said I didn't want to be in the play. And then when they were ready to do the play, I kind of changed my mind and said, "Can I be in your play, please?" So they had to write a whole new character to include me.
Oh my God! So what did you play?
I was the ant, and what I decided I could do is there were loads of like dialogue in the script where everyone said it together, and I just decided I'll have those. So that was my dialogue, the entire thing. But I can't believe I remember that. I was 7, Iram, and I've not forgotten it. They gave the
Spoiler
role of
alert.
James to a girl.
Spoiler alert, Stephen and Caroline are now married,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah, she was a lovely girl, actually. She was all right. But yeah,
she
so
wanted to play a boy.
I feel like we've gone off here. I feel like we've gone off.
Okay, back to Roald Dahl. There's a reason why we brought him up, and not just because we liked his books. Still can't believe
Fucking Caroline.
you, sweet Caroline. I still can't believe Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator was your favorite. I mean, that's like, isn't that the equivalent of liking Godfather 3 compared to?
Yeah, I think it is. I just want to be different. I think that's what it is.
See, I've watched the Godfather movie, so you know.
I've not seen the third one. I like the BFG.
I've not seen the third one.
I've got the third one, but because I heard it was so terrible, I've decided just not to watch it. Anyway, fucking Roald Dahl, what are we doing? Right. So the reason I'm bringing up Roald Dahl is because they have reissued many of his books, and they've tried to bring them up to date, tried to make them right on, tried to remove some of the more problematic areas of the book and bring them to a new audience. And the Independent has helpfully done an article titled "The 6 Most Glaring Edits to Roald Dahl's Books" by publisher Puffin. Should we go through some of them?
Oh yes, please.
All right, so this is a good one. So Rudyard Kipling has been swapped out for Jane Austen. So in the original version of Matilda, it stated, she went on olden day sailing ships with Joseph Conrad. She went to Africa with Ernest Hemingway, and to India with Rudyard Kipling. And they've replaced that with, she went to 19th century estates with Jane Austen. She went to Africa with Ernest Hemingway, and California with John Steinbeck. I don't know why they've got rid of Joseph Conrad. Was he problematic? Heart of Darkness?
I don't know. I mean, I can see why Rudyard Kipling would be, because, you know, obviously an imperialist.
White man's burden, Iram. White man's burden. So, yeah, it's got a little footnote here. Both Conrad and Kipling have been accused of racism in reappraisals of their work. So it brings up that whole debate again, doesn't it? Like, can we not just understand something in context? Can we not have a discussion about the time it was written and what people thought, or do we have to? I mean, this is memory holding, isn't it? This is pure George Orwell shit.
I mean, you know, when people talk about Orwellian, describe something as Orwellian, you think, shut up. But actually, this really can be described as something Orwellian.
It gets worse.
I think didn't they? Have they got rid of the words fat or something? And Oompa Loompas are people or non-gender specific.
So this is from The Witches. This is where it gets a bit more ideological.
Oh, this was my favourite edit, yes.
So in The Witches, where the witches wear wigs, Dahl had written, "You can't go round pulling the hair of every lady you meet, even if she is wearing gloves. Just you try it and see what happens." And Puffin's new version reads, "Besides, there are plenty of other reasons why women might wear wigs, and there is certainly nothing wrong with that." Holy shit! That's finger wagging, but you're taking the voice of a dead author to do it. You're desecrating some celebrated children's fiction from one of Britain's most celebrated authors, and you're taking his voice and finger wagging about your pet political projects. And
you've made the book shitter.
And you've made the book shitter. Yes, that's the main point.
Oh, I loved The Witches. I thought it was such a good book, and I liked the Angelica Houston.
The film
movie as well.
Yeah.
I've not seen the Anne Hathaway one, because I'm sorry, but Anne Hathaway are too pretty to be a witch. That's not to say witches are all ugly, by the way. No offense to any witches out there. You know, don't want to offend anybody. But there's nothing wrong with being ugly as well. That's okay too. I'm trying to be very Puffin.
Well, this is obviously a they them blue haired middle class social
nose ring wearing.
Yeah, this is their fingerprints are all over.
Latte drinking.
And I found an example of one of the changes where the mask clearly slips, where we get onto a bit of classism. So this is from The Witches as well.
Oh,
so
good.
In the original version, the women were described as being supermarket cashiers or letter writers for businessmen. In the new edition, women are described, they're replaced, their occupations are replaced as top scientists or business owners themselves.
Oh, that just sums it up, doesn't it?
So, sorry, Yeah, somebody who's working as a cashier or a letter writer is not worthy of the characters anymore. That's too low a station for women, and it should be brought up to date to be more positive. That's where the mask has slipped. These are working people, but somebody's decided that's such a lowly role as to be offensive in the modern era.
It's I mean, not only is it super, super annoying and makes you just really want to bang their heads against a wall, but it's quite insulting to the author and his work. I mean, okay, I get it. Roald Dahl had problematic views. Okay, but he was a good writer, and his books were and they are still loved by many children. And this rewriting is just another sign that I think we live in infantilized times. Everything is being censored or rewritten, and it's done to
Diluted, yeah.
avoid, yeah, diluted to avoid offending certain people, even when people wouldn't be um offended. And we're treating, not only are we treating adults as children, telling them, "Oh no, you must use these correct pronouns." By the way, and now we're treating children as robots to be programmed with the correct quote unquote views. And what's it? I mean, why would you bother even reading literature if that's what they're going to do to it? People will just think, "Oh, there's no point reading any books."
It's just the audacity to think you can improve upon it. Should we do one more? We'll do one more, and it's the fat phobia one. So this one comes from James and the Giant Peach, not Caroline and the fucking Giant Peach. James, Jimmy,
Oh,
Jimmy
well,
and the
you
Giant
get
Peach.
over it. It's been what,
Fuck.
30 years?
Yeah, well, still hurts. Right. So in James and the Giant Peach, a passage used to say, Aunt Sponge was terrifically fat and tremendously flabby at that. Her tummy and waist were as soggy as paste. It was worse on the place where she sat. It's a nice little, is that a limerick? Okay. But now it
Nice little
reads,
rhyme.
Aunt Sponge was a nasty old brute and deserved to be squashed by the fruit. We all felt a big bump when we dropped with a thump. We left Aunt Sponge behind us, but you needn't remind us that we shouldn't feel rotten, for we haven't forgotten how spiteful she could be. What the fuck was that?
That was. Yeah, I have no words. Oh my god, this is just really bad. I mean,
I'm upset. I'm depressed now. That sent me into a spiral of depression. That this is a real thing.
Did it remind you of Caroline?
Don't say that name.
If you've made it this far, please hashtag Caroline is James.
Oh, this is unfair. She's actually well, from what I remember 30 years
She
ago.
actually is your best friend.
I think I bumped into her in passing. She's a lovely girl who definitely
All right, Caroline.
deserved it.
Should I say
Deserved the role.
James?
Jimmy
Did
Jimmy.
you attack her in the Asda aisle or something?
How'd you like these peaches? Yeah. Well,
the thing with Roald Dahl is, every author has his or her sort of signature and the style of writing and themes, but the part of what was appealing about Roald Dahl though was that his writing was a little bit dark. It was a bit grotesque as well.
yes.
And that's what kids like. Kids, I mean, kids are little shits, right? They like gruesome stuff. They like reading about farts and poo and vomit and all sorts of
Whiz pop,
nasty
whiz
things.
bang, the big farting giant. That had me in hysterics as a kid.
Of course it did. See, kids love stupid stuff like that. That's why his books were so appealing for them. Because he knew what kids liked. You can't sanitize his work.
Yeah, well, in fairness to Puffin, there was quite a sizable response to their decisions, and they have stated that they will release the original versions alongside the edited
Oh god,
version.
a lot. Who's gonna buy the edited?
So it's the new Dahl multiverse now. But yeah, that's that. Do we have time to pick another topic? I'll let you just choose one at random.
Oh my God, what should we go for?
So much.
Do you think let's address the Wakefield saga?
Oh God. I mean, this is
Literally, oh God.
yeah. I mean, this could be. I mean, this is we seem to have a story like this every couple of months. I don't think people realize just
It's
how.
like it's the same story, but then you just change the name of the town, or
Yeah.
you swap out like one gender for another. You change the age of someone, and that's it. It's pretty much wash, rinse, and repeat, really, isn't it?
I don't think people who aren't in the UK realize just what how much of a knife edge we're on in terms of upsetting Islamic fundamentalists in this country into doing something really stupid.
Right.
Do you wanna talk about what happened in Wakefield?
So, a couple of weeks ago in Wakefield, apparently 4 boys were suspended from Kettlethorpe High School. So you think, okay, they must have done something really bad to deserve it. I mean, boys at that age are little shits.
Of course.
Of course. You should remember that, Stephen.
Wow. I felt every
come on,
word
you're
of
a teenager.
shit. Just back at school getting told off again.
Oh, come on. I bet you were a shit at 14.
I was a little shit, yes. That's
There you
fair
go.
to say.
Thank you for confirming that. So, yeah, so one of the boys lost a bet, and apparently the forfeit was to bring a Quran in, for some odd reason, right? I don't know
Sure.
why. But that's the story. He brought into school and something happened, and guess what happened next, Stephen?
Well, it's a bit unclear on exactly what happened because there were rumours going around that a Quran was desecrated. Then it was perhaps a bit of a scuff. Then it was nothing had happened. It was just a rumour that it had been scuffed. You couldn't really get any concrete.
Basically,
Go on.
just what we know is that the Quran was dropped on the floor. That's, I mean, yeah. Now let me say something here. So, as Muslims, you're told that the Quran is holy, and it's you have to wash before touching it because it's pure, right? And you can't drop it on the floor, and it's really bad if you do. But that's for Muslims. I wouldn't expect some non-Muslim to actually observe that rule. But that's why you're not supposed to. That's why dropping it on the floor is seen as a big deal. But the teenage boys, it was dropped. It should really have not been such a big deal. It should just been a case of maybe it should have been an interior matter, a matter for the school teachers, the authorities, just to say, look, boys, this is a holy book for certain people. You shouldn't treat it with disrespect. That's it. If even that. But no, it ended up being turned into this massive circus where, the local police got involved, the local mosque got involved, activists got involved, and the one of the boys' mothers was like hauled before the members of the local mosque, wearing like this headscarf and just begging for forgiveness and saying, oh, her son didn't know what he was doing was wrong because he's autistic and he's being threatened.
Yeah, he got death threats, didn't he?
He got death threat.
Kid.
A 14-year-old, okay, I get kids are shits at that age, but they don't deserve death threats, right? And so she's at mosque pleading his case, saying, look, please, enough. And you have a police officer sitting there alongside the mosque's imam, and he said to them, obviously, violence is not following the teachings of Islam. Okay, fair enough.
Good point.
But then he added, we will never tolerate the disrespect of the Holy Quran. We will sacrifice our lives for it.
Normal person.
Yeah. So when you have somebody saying something like that, it's not quite condemning the violence now, is it? It's
No.
yeah, you're basically somebody there who's kind of in a way legitimizing the reaction to this poor boy who's now gone into hiding. And he's saying all of this while sitting next to an actual police officer, Andy Thornton, who's sitting there and he's just nodding away. Like, why are you nodding when
That
someone's
was like a hostage
threatening
video,
your
wasn't
kids?
it?
Oh my God. It was awful. And I think that kind of underlined the shameful reality of modern day Britain, that, disrespecting Islam, even by accident, even as a teenager, is a risky business.
Yes.
Yeah.
What really frustrates me about it is even the police and even non-Muslims, activists, but Muslim interest groups as well, they'll use this phrase about, creating community tension or community division by these acts. They'll use that phrase all the time. And for me, what creates more division and tension in communities is threatening the life of fucking children for dropping a book. That's going to create a fair amount of tension within communities. It's going to create a fair amount of tension and division in communities if people are so terrified to say anything about someone's religion, or the fear of even discussing the religion in case they say something wrong or do something wrong. For me, it's the Islamo-fascists that are creating division and tension within these communities by trying to enforce Islamic blasphemy codes on fucking children, no less. So it's a very, very tense situation at the minute, or a very delicate situation. You wonder who's going to be the next Salman Rushdie or etc. I don't know if you saw Richard Dawkins on Piers Morgan the other day. He seems to have washed his hands of the whole Islam debate. He doesn't want to speak about it publicly anymore. I think he's scared of some lunatic jumping on stage and trying to stab him in the eye.
That's just incredible. Richard Dawkins, who
Yeah.
not known for holding back, is now holding back on this topic. Although I would argue that he probably doesn't have as much to worry about, given that, like with Salman Rushdie, it was different because he actually had a fatwa over his head. So you just kind of knew that the threat was always there. It never went away. It was just a matter of time before, some fucking idiot went and took things in, took the matter into his own hands and did something to him, which he did last year. Dawkins, well, I guess maybe he's just thinking better to be safe than sorry.
You don't know what security concerns he has behind the scenes. You don't know what he's been advised or what's happened. I mean, one of the annoying things...
And we're accepting this now. I mean, have we learnt nothing over the last few years? You had Batley Grammar School, again, not in Yorkshire as well, not far away from this school in Wakefield, just 2 years ago, where a teacher was forced into hiding after he showed cartoons of Muhammad as part of a religious studies class about free speech. How ironic. And he did that with the consent of his pupils and warned them about it and said, look, it might be deemed offensive for some people, so you're okay to leave the class if it's going to upset you. And everyone's like, yeah, it's fine, no problem. But you know what happened after that. And hardline protesters showed up outside the school, shutting it down for days, and the police are just facilitating it instead of telling
politicians said nothing. Prime Minister said fuck all. Boris Johnson said fuck all at the time, and
these people should have been told fuck off and go home. Unless you have kids at this school and they need collecting at the end of the school days, fuck off. Why are you not at work? Why were these people not working? Do they not have jobs? That's what I was wondering. You have a bunch of shouty bearded men outside school. Isn't that why is nobody stopping them? And this poor teacher, his name was published online and he had to go into hiding, had to move out. And as far as I'm aware, he's not gone back into teaching. Because of
his life's ruined. Shall we speed run some audience questions in the last 5 minutes?
Have we even had any? Have we had any from our 2 listeners?
We've had thousands of them, but I'm going to whittle it down to 1, 2, 3, just down to the best 3, Iram. Although we've had thousands, but I'm going to choose the best 3. But we've had more. But anyway.
I've seen one. Why is Iram so amazing? That's a good question.
That'd take more than
user I've not made up.
We can't summarize that in 5 minutes, can we? That's a 10-part BBC podcast special. Yeah. Okay. So, Creative Introvert has asked. Some are saying the appalling events at the Let Women Speak rally in New Zealand is actually a win for the gender critical side because it'll open a lot of eyes. Do you think it will? Does
Yes.
that kind of thing ever reach beyond those already invested in the culture wars online? I think that's a great point. And I think so. Basically, what you've got to appreciate is most of these gender activists who have these crazy views about gender are actually a very, very vocal and active minority. And you will never sway them people. Those people are ideologues. They think this is a victory today because they've shut this woman down. Whereas average people around the world watching this now will see a woman who wanted to stand in public and speak, and a rainbow mob of lunatics tried to shut her down and assault her. And that the term is peaked. Now, I don't know if you see that's being used. People are getting peaked on this issue where they're having a bit of a journey on it. They're as soon as somebody gets to see the reality of it and the curtains pulled back on what these activists are demanding and doing, they start getting a lot more strident on the issue. So this has just created thousands of more turfs. I think that's all that's done. You're creating a martyr out of this. Is why censorship, at best, is ineffective, or at worst, counterproductive. So you just, by showing that you can't beat her ideas, people are looking at this and going, well, what's she saying? What was she trying to say? And they'll be looking at her work up and going, it's not nothing crazy. It's not unreasonable. Yeah, of course, men are different than women. Yeah, of course, biology is real. Yeah, of course, women should have sex-based rights. And they'll start to see these blue-haired loons for what they are. Someone, Murray, has just put the word Eddie. I don't know if they mean Eddie Izzard. Did you see the latest about Eddie Izzard?
Is it Eddie Izzard? Are we sure?
Oh no, I've just dead named him, haven't I? Her. Oh God, 3 hate crimes in a single sentence.
What is Eddie Izzard's female name?
Susie.
Oh, is this the? Oh, I think this is the story, isn't it? That no. There's a few things. So Eddie Izzard said most right-wing comedians are racist and sexist, and then also reveals she has added new name to her passport. Fucking hell! How did Eddie Izzard get a passport in a woman's name? Jesus.
I don't. It's like I don't.
She said that while she prefers to be called Susie. Oh, hang on. She doesn't mind being called Eddie, just as while she prefers she/her pronouns. She's also okay with he/him. So why were we all bending over backwards trying not to misgender him all that time when he is okay with it?
Yeah,
fucking hell.
This is the activist part of it. This is the very important point I keep trying to hammer on. When people see me oppose gender ideology, they think I'm opposing trans people, and it's very rare that I have any disagreements with trans people or see trans people pushing this shit. It's completely non-trans gender activists that are responsible for the lion's share of it, overwhelmingly deciding what's best for transgender people or what things we have to believe. So yeah, I don't care about Eddie Susie Izzard. Do you?
No. You know what's funny? He was he was on Talk TV, and he was talking about Great Expectations and how playing all these different characters in a stage production is perfect for a trans person. And then he said, playing Estella, a drop-dead gorgeous young girl, having been born a boy but feeling like I would have liked to have been a girl, that's an interesting place to go. Do you think he's just trolling us? Do you think Eddie Izzard is like a, would you say Trojan horse? What's the correct terminology to use here? Do you think he's just like been placed there just to troll us all?
Well,
and to see how far he can go with it.
There's an aspect of, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not, many people believe they're trying to do the right thing by trans people or non-gender conforming people, but there's a certain aspect of this that wheels out someone like Eddie Izzard in front of you, clearly a bloke, and says, go on, I dare you to say that's a bloke. Because they can then say, yeah, well, that's the game. They're saying, look, everybody, this is a woman. This is a legitimate woman. I dare you to say otherwise, because then they can point the finger and say, heretic, blasphemer. And that's how they do it. Yeah. So last question from all views my own. The question being raised about Dawkins stepping into the gender critical debate. Don't know you to know if the school children blasphemy issue has been resolved. We've covered that. Thoughts on the neo-religion of gender critical or other brainwork topics? I'm not quite sure what that means. Are they able to be treated the same as other religious doctrines? I think he's talking about gender ideology. Should we consider it a religion? I think so. I think you should be able to claim,
Yes,
religious
it's a new
exemption
dogma.
from. Yeah, if anyone's trying to impose this on you in the workplace, I think it's quite fair to say, actually, I'm a secular liberal. I'm not on board with your faith-based ideology. Thanks for your time. But I've noticed we are starting to get more protections in the workplace, thanks to people like Maya Forstater, her case where the judge ruled that belief in biological sex is worthy of respect in a modern democracy or something like that, or modern society. She won her case for being unfairly dismissed for having gender critical beliefs. So I think workplaces are going to find themselves on very shaky ground now if they try and impose a lot of this nonsense.
I think this just goes to show you how a little bit of restraint was needed. Why on earth were we giving into, the blue-haired brigade when we should have taken a step back and said, look, if someone's legitimately identifying as X and, maybe they've had surgery, etc., then that's different. But, let's not give in to these ideologues because, it's a bunch of, it's a minority. And it's the ones that shout the loudest and everyone's scared of offending them. But, there are more women than there are trans people or trans activists. Surely we should be prioritized above them.
That's a great point to finish on. I think we've nailed it for 1 week again,
Yeah. Are we now super turds now?
We are.
Following this.
We've transcended turfdom into the realm of the turd. I'm not sure if that's a good thing. That was so cringe. Politicians should not try to be funny. They are not funny. They are fucking dweebs, and they should crack on with the job. Iram, it's been a pleasure. I'm sure when we record in April, there'll be no Islamic blasphemy controversies, and the gender thing will have completely fell off the edge of the world, and we won't have to worry about that anymore.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've solved the world's problems today.
All right. I'm off to rewrite Charles Dickens to bring it up to a more modern audience.
Are you really?
It's not going to be please, sir, can I have some more, sir? It's going to be please, they, them, non-gender specific guardian. May I have some more? And also,
we're not going to fat shame you for wanting more either. We're not gonna, you want more? You want more? Yes.
Oliver was actually fasting for Ramadan. Thank you for listening to the Godless Spellchecker podcast. The podcast is a one-man operation produced in my spare time away from my day job, and I love making it for you. If you enjoy what you hear, please consider lending some support. The show is entirely listener supported. I don't sell anything, I don't run ads, and given the alternative and unpopular focus of my content, it's very unlikely to find a sponsor. So there are a number of ways you can support and chip in and help improve the show and give me more time to produce more content. You can become a patron supporter and pledge a monetary amount per month or per episode by visiting patreon.com/gspellchecker. If you can't lend monetary support right now, don't worry, there's other ways you can help the podcast too. You can share it on your various social media networks, or take a moment to leave a review wherever you listen to it. Your support is massively appreciated. Thank you. I think we've all learned something here today.